Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Thank you for joining me for part 1 of my 2,000 subscriber special. It has been a very long and crazy road. I think I just hit the 1K landmark maybe about a couple months ago. So I did not expect to be doing this video this soon. So I want to thank all of you for supporting my channel through what has been years now. Many of you are new arrivals for sure, but I know there's a lot of people out there who have been watching my channel since I was just a wee, like 200 subscribers and things like that. And I want to let you guys know that I do deeply appreciate that, and I am very much humbled that this many people actually enjoy watching my videos. I started this channel like 4 or 5 years ago maybe as a project that I never thought would really go anywhere. It was just to help me work on just speaking in front of other people. Public speaking was a big fear of mine. It still is, but this has really helped me go a long way in terms of building my confidence when it comes to talking in front of other people. So it's great to be here and to have had all the support through the years from you guys. So thank you very, very much. But without any further ado, let's get into what I promised you. This is a 4v4 on 3rd Age Reforged. Huge settings. I think there's like 20,000 or so people in this battle. It is very, very large. And it is done on a brand new map that I guarantee you none of you have ever seen before. There's only maybe a handful of people who got to play on it since it was released a few days ago. And this is the River Canyon Pass. Now, if you see here, there is a lot of choke points throughout this map. And there's more of them really than a single team can conceivably defend without spreading themselves extremely thin. And in the event that that happens, the attacking forces will be able to concentrate their armies on a single portion of the map and be able to just overrun the thinly spread defenders. Now, all of these points lead towards a centralized basin. You can see this little lake here that has a large mountain jutting out of the center, and both teams right off the bat are able to deploy on this mountain. So when you do large team battles in this, your games can start really, really quickly, and it just becomes a chaotic mess of trying to reinforce your center lines and just constantly outflanking more and more enemy reinforcements as they pour in until you get to the ultimate stage of the battle. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the army comps, and then we can get into the replay itself. I hope you guys enjoy it. The first army we're going to look at today is one of the many Kingdom of Dale armies present on the battlefield today, this one being commanded by yours truly. I've brought 2 units of Bardian marksmen who are they can be mainline infantry as well. They've got shield value, so they can stand up really well in an arrow fight, but once they run out of ammunition, they are not bad in close quarters as well. I've also got 3 units of Dalian marksmen who are even better than the Bardian marksmen in close combat by virtue of the axes that they wield. They have AP, so they're actually not bad at countering other heavy infantry and for holding the line in a pinch. I've also brought 2 units of woodsmen who are like a lower tier archer for Dale. I just wanted to go for volume of fire with these guys. Also a couple units of Elder Avari archers for my elite sniper units. These elven units are very, very strong, some of the best archers that Dale can bring to the battlefield. I've also got, I believe, 3 units of Dalian Spearmen, which is the max. They are AP Spears, one of the few AP Spear units in the game, and I do believe that they will be conserving that bonus well over onto 0.95, which, on that topic, because I'm sure many of you are curious when the new patch will be coming out, it's hopefully going to be very, very soon. I actually joined the balance team, so I've been helping to apply the new stat metric to various rosters. And if you guys have any questions about that, I am able to tell you basically anything you'd want to know. There is no secrets when it comes to the mod, so if you guys are curious about stats or where factions are heading, etc., etc., by all means, pose that question down in the comment section. I will, if I don't have an answer, I will talk to the team and I will get an answer for you. But in any case, I also got 2 units of Barding Herd, very strong halberd units, AP, and very well armored as well, so they can stand up quite well to arrow fire, despite the fact that they technically lack a shield. They have one on the back, but I don't believe that they have a shield value when it comes to stats. And finally, last but not least, I have a single unit here of Royal Guard. This is where my general is going to be hanging out. The Royal Guard are AP arrows, one of the few units in the game. They will be losing that in the 0.95 patch. I believe the only units that will have AP arrows are the Mordor Temple Guard, the Dragon Slayers for Dale, so they will conserve that, and the Dunine Bodyguards, so the Steel Bows, things like that. Those are the only 3 archer units that will have AP. So most of that is going to be going away, but of course crossbows are going to be retaining that bonus. And speaking of crossbows, moving on now to my ally. This is the forces of Recreus, who is commanding the Dwarves. He's got 3 units of Ironfoot Guard, 2 2 units of airborne infantry, multiple HP, AP infantry. These guys are deadly, deadly against armor. I don't think that their attack values are obscenely high, so they're not necessarily amazing at taking down high melee defense units like the elves, for example. But when it comes to hacking through armor, airborne infantry, that is your go-to. Records also bring in, I believe, 2 units of Ironfoot crossbows. Yes, indeed, 2 units of Ironfoot crossbows, 2 units of Khazad Orc Hunters, a couple units of Axemen of Erebor, 3 units of Ironfoot spears, 1 unit of Catapult, 1 unit of Sons of the Fallen, which is where his general's going to be hanging out. You can see Dane Ironfoot himself there, looking very sexy and with his red beard. And I think that just about does it for the Erebor army. I've got a little bit more Ironfoot guard over here. Now, this map is still being tested. I think I forgot to mention that in the introduction. The map is still being tested, and that was the purpose of our playing on it today. So this little nightmare you can see here of a deployment zone will not be staying in the final version of the map. Naturally, this is going to be nice and spread out, so you'll have some options. Hopefully, they'll yeah, I don't know exactly where they're going to go, but they might be able to deploy in a much cleaner kind of stripe here when it comes to the larger scale team battles like 4v4. But in any case, this is the Forces of Dale being commanded by Carindel, one of the developers for the mod. I believe he's got 2 units of Earls, 3 units of Dalian Marksmen, 1 unit of Paladins, a couple units of Sword Masters. You can kind of see their great swords sticking up right there. Yeah, just to the left of that horseman. I think he's also got a... I can't quite remember, but I'm going to make sure that I put the army comp in a picture so you guys will be able to see it, so you'll be able to know what he has. And of course, he's got a bit of a catapult there. So pretty bog standard Dale forces so far. Now we move on to the 4th and final blue team army, that being commanded by the creator of the map himself and one of the developers for the mod, Sin of the Dark Cloud. I believe he's got 4 units of Dalesmen, 1 unit of Earls. He's got, I think, 2 units of the Ravanian Hunters, very cheap javelin units. One of the things that I noticed in the meta in recent days is that people are shifting towards, I would say, more towards large numbers and very high efficiency units. And units like this cost next to nothing. Ravanian Hunters, I think, have like 6 javelin damage, but they only cost 170 or so to bring. So they can be pretty cost-efficient counters to things like Momakil, for example. And we do have our Harad player on the field today, which is probably why he's bringing so many Javies. He's also got 2 units of Dalish Swordmasters, 2 units of the Dalish Paladins, who are basically everything that the Swordmasters are not. They are heavily armored, they have AP, and they both have multiple HP, but these guys are just able to stand up to damage a hell of a lot better, especially missile damage. For example, the Dalish Swordmasters really rely heavily on their melee defense, and they don't have a ton of armor, so that's a big drawback to bringing in the unit. In any case, you got 3 units of Dalian Marksmen, who, as I mentioned earlier, are AP and melee as well. 1 unit of Athala Rangers, 1 unit of Royal Guard, which is where his general is going to be as well. And I believe he's also got a couple units here of the Woodsmen, 1 or 2 units. The Dalish Dragon Slayers, which is a unit that I believe that Sin of the Dark Cloud actually created. And I think that just about does it for his army. So let's go ahead and let's see what Team Red has brought to the battle today. The first Red Team army we're going to look at today is the Forces of Umbar, being commanded by Cannon Fodder, who is one of the moderators from the official 3rd Age Reforged Discord. He is bringing a unit of Ballista, I believe 1 unit of Castamere, of the Harbingers of Castamere, alongside a unit of Castamere's Chosen. These guys are deadly shock troops. In this current patch, they have multiple HP, but they'll be losing that HP a little bit later, but they will still retain their high melee defense and melee attack values. It won't be quite as large as it is now. Stats are just generally being scaled down a lot, but the Harbingers of Castamere will still be a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. Behind them, he's got a unit of Naruna Royal Guard, which I don't think is where his general is going to be. He's got a lot of like really elite tier generals bodyguard units. They don't actually have his general in them. Down here, we got another one of them, the Naruna Royal Archers, one of the few AP arrows in the game. Usually the bodyguard units tend to be AP in just about every aspect of combat, though I think that's a trait that they won't be retaining into 0.95 as well. He's got 3 or 4 units of Merchant Militia, a couple units of Belagear Halberds, 1 or 2 units of the Belagear Archers, and I think a single unit, no, actually 2 or 3 units here of the Corsair Savages. He's also got some more forces down here. He's got, look at that, another unit of Belagear Archers, 3 units of Belagear Archers, 1 unit of Warlords of Umbar, which is where Castamere is going to be hanging out. I believe this model was done custom by the 3rd Age Reforged team. That is to represent the King Castamere the Usurper, who once rose in rebellion against his overlords in the White City. And I think you can't see them yet, but he does have a unit, of course, their Blackguard, who are devastating javelin units. They're also multiple HP and able to hold their own very well in close quarters. Well, that does it for cannon fodder's armor. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at the Runic army being commanded by WK, another one of the developers from the 3rd Age Reforged team. He's got a couple units here of the Clan Hunters, who are light bowmen, a couple units of Loknar Rim, who are like a medium tier bowman. They're not amazing, but they're also not terrible. They've got decent enough melee, or not melee damage, or arrow damage, and they've got some pretty good range as well. WK also bringing one unit of Clansmen, looking like a few budget picks here just to round out the rest of his budget. He's got 3 units of Lok Gamp Rim, 4 units actually of the Lok Flag Rim, and I don't know if you can see them all in here, but he's also got 3 units of the Runic Swiftblades, who are a lower tier. They're basically Gondor infantry in terms of their quality versus the amount of money it takes to bring them. WK also bringing a single unit of Dragon Knights and a unit of the Runic Bodyguards. That's a lot of HP on his horses right there, especially those Campbell's Dragon Knights. Very, very deadly. If they can get themselves running, or get themselves moving and get that charge bonus going off at a decent enough angle, these guys can run over infantry formations, although I do imagine that their usefulness is going to be a little bit hampered in this kind of fighting, where there's not really a lot of open plains, there's a lot of choke points and things like that, so not necessarily a lot of opportunities for these guys to get it going, but if they can manage to penetrate lines and get some hammer and anvil strikes off, damn, they will turn a game around right quick. WK also bringing a couple units here of the Balkoth Tribesmen, who are very efficient javelin units. They're also not half bad in melee after the fact as well. And I believe they also have AP in this patch. I could be wrong about that. It's been a while since I've gone through the stats. I've just been going through the new patches stats, so I'm a little bit fuzzy on that. But I think that they do have AP. Moving on now to the 3rd Red Team Army, we have the forces of Starling, who is also commanding the Haven of Umbar. He's got 1 unit of the Corsair Fencers, who are deadly in close quarters, 40 AP damage. They are a little bit lighter in terms of their armor stats, but they have high melee defense, like 31 melee defense. It's pretty crazy. So they are very good at taking down forces in close quarters. Starling has a very, very small but elite force. Got a couple units here of the Harbingers of Castamere. That's a lot of money. I think these guys cost about 1350 each to bring. Again, 3 HP, pretty good, pretty decent shock troops. Also bringing a single unit here of the Corsair Savages. 1 unit, actually 2 units of the Aberzani Nardu Zagar, who are 2-handed sword units with decent enough charge bonus and extra HP to boot. Also bringing a unit here of the Naranar Royal Archers, 1 unit of Catapults, 1 or 2 units, I believe, of the Belier Archers, a unit of Castamere's Chosen, and I think he's got some Blackguard hidden in here as well. So yeah, he definitely has a unit of the Corsair Blackguard. Let's move on now to the 4th and final Red Team Army. We have the forces of Crimson Behelit, who I think is another developer as well. This is a very large developer battle because, like I said, it was an internal testing kind of thing for the map, but the game ended up being so good and so close that I absolutely had to upload it for my 2K special. But in any case, Crimson Behelit bringing, I believe, 5 units of Southron Warband, 2 units of the Muhaid Beast Tamers, who are pretty decent enough pike units. I don't think that they have AP the way that the Southron pikes do, but they have a little bit higher stats and naturally cost a little bit more as a result. He's also got 3 units here of the Dismounted Serpent Guard. I love the Serpent Guard. I love the way these guys look. Probably, I would say that they're right up there. They're like my top 5 units in the game in terms of the way that they look, and I always bring these guys when I play as Harad. You can't not. They're too cool and they're too good for what they cost. I believe the Crimson Behelit also has 3 units of Haradrim Archers, 1 unit of Southron Archers, a couple units of Trollmen of Harad, because as you do, as is tradition, you always bring the full complement of 2 units of Trollmen of Harad when you play as Harad, because they are just so damned strong. He's also got a unit here of the Southron Lancers, and a single unit of Serpent Bodyguard, who again, another favorite of mine, not just because of the way that they look, although look at them. They got the Serpent Guard's look, but they've also got those brutal looking barbed lances. These guys are so fast, and they have multiple HP as well, so they can stand up to range fire. Not easy to shut down from a distance. You really need another cavalry unit to try and get these guys. That's only assuming you can catch them. So it's easy to get their charge bonus off, and they are devastating when they do so. That just about does it for the army comps. Let's go ahead and let's jump into the replay. And so it begins. As you can see here, Carundol and Cannon Fodder are going to be the first into the fray. Having both deployed on this mountain, they are now going to be mere meters from one another, and they are both going to take this opportunity to just run and get stuck in, and it is going to be beautiful, beautiful carnage. The merchants leading the way, backed up by some Corsair Savages. That is a really efficient, reasonably deadly lineup that I think some of the more heavily armored Dalish armored units are going to have some issues with. Oh man, those catapults coming, I think that was from the Dwarven catapult, getting a nice piece of those Belier archers. I think they might have hit someone else a little bit farther along the line. No, it doesn't look like it. Cannon fodder pouring more and more of his forces in. Let's get right in the thick of it. You can see both masses of troops meeting in the center here. Ballista fire pouring down from the heights into this bunched up blob of Dalish forces, claiming the lives of some of their elite tier Dalish earls, rather. I think as this moves on, it's going to become very apparent that cannon fodder is in a lot of trouble. As you can see, the forces of Dale are backed up by the stalwart footmen of the Dwarves. There's a lot of Ironfoot spears moving in there. I think they've got their crossbows up here as well, alongside a couple units of Khazad Orc Hunters, not to mention that catapult. So for this blobbed up Umbar force, that's going to be a really big problem, because not only do the Dwarves have a significant range contingent up here on the crest of this hill overlooking the main engagement, there's also a large number of Dale bowmen here as well. The Dalian marksmen have 10 missile damage, which is damned high, not to mention there's some Royal Guard here, so with their AP arrows, I think that the Umbar forces are just going to get shot down here while they're held in place by some of the elite tier Dalian melee infantry. Here, right here, and starting to see the Corsair Savages getting stuck in with the Dale Swordmaster. It's not going to go well for the Corsair Savages, although they might manage to shave off a little bit of HP from those elite two-handed swordsmen. Over here we can see the Harad is moving in. This is exactly what they need to be doing. They need to get up there, try and support their ally. They have an opportunity for a beautiful flank attack here. If Harad was to come straight around here through the center, he might be able to get up there, disrupt some of the skirmish line. Most of his spearmen, I think, would probably die in the attempt, but at least it will buy Umbar a little bit of time. I don't think the Dwarves are going to give them that opportunity, though. You can see a very, very heavy contingent of Dwarven heavy infantry. This is all 3 units of the Ironfoot Guard backed up by the Axemen of Erebor. And there goes the Dalish General. Looked like he got caught there between some Corsair Savages and some Merchant Militia. That's gonna be all she wrote for the Dalish General. That's pretty significant to lose their general this early in the game. I think a lot of these Dalian units are in a strong enough position, however, especially backed up with the Dwarves, that they're probably not going to rout. A lot of the chaff is going to stick around for a very long time, so it may not amount to too much, but unfortunate for Dale that they lost the general so early on in the game. Down here you can see the South Rhun Warband looking like they wanted a piece of those Dwarves, but it looks like they've changed their mind and they're trying to get out of there. But unfortunately this one unit got itself a little bit out of position and is going to get tackled by a couple units of Axemen of Erebor over on this end here. Let's go ahead and slow it down just a little bit. I was moving up with about half of my force. I've actually split my forces. I've got most of them over here, but I've also got some of my heavy hitting bowmen and my line infantry over here to support Sin of the Dark Cloud. But over on this end, you can see that I was moving up with my archers and things like that to flank the Haradrim as they came in. So the Haradrim rounded on me suddenly, looking like they were feinting towards the Dwarves, and then suddenly veered off, and now they are charging headlong into my lines. I've actually had to throw my Dalish marksmen under the bus here. They're my most able melee infantry in terms of my entire skirmishing corps. They have the best chance of holding the line. So I'm going to have to throw them under the bus. They're here forming my front line while my spearmen bring up the rear. They're now running to try and catch these Serpent Bodyguards. Unfortunately for the Serpent Bodyguard, they charged into a section of my line that was backed up with my Rivermen. Now, my Rivermen did get clipped in that engagement, and I think maybe about a dozen or so of them died, but they did get off a clutch of their javelins. You can see a lot of dead horses there, much more, I think, than Crimson Beheli was expecting. Over here, you can see the same process repeating itself. South Rhun Lancers charging in to my Dalian marksmen. They do not have the mass and the charge bonus, however, that the Serpent Bodyguard do, so that is not going to go well for them. And now that my spearmen have arrived on scene, I'm going to be able to form some front lines and prevent those cavalry from knocking down my my archers. Although, strangely enough, I didn't pull my archers out here. I decided I was just going to commit them. I had enough archers back there. I think if I were to do this battle over, I would definitely bring back my Dalian marksmen. They didn't necessarily need to be there, but unfortunately, I think the big impetus for that was that my Dalian spearmen were a little bit too far behind. So if I pulled these guys out here, the South Rhun Warband would be able to advance on my Rivermen and my archers and everything in my back lines, so not good for me. Over here you can see the Serpent Bodyguards have skirted around my lines, and they're going right for my Rivermen. A high-quality target here. Rivermen are really, really deadly, but they're going to get, I think, 2 volleys of javelin shots off, and that is going to be very, very bad for the Serpent Guard. A lot of them are actually going to die in this engagement. I think they're down now to about half the unit. Yeah, look at that. Losing about 10 there in that javelin volley. I'm going to pull my Rivermen out of there now that my Dalian spearmen have arrived on scene. They can begin to form battle lines and push back the Serpent Bodyguards with their AP and with their spear bonus. Yeah, so Crimson Beheli is going to have to pull his Serpent Bodyguards out of there quickly as possible to avoid getting them completely destroyed. Over here I have some Dalian spearmen. Again, I was thinking maybe I could have brought my Dalian spearmen in here and trapped those horsemen, but they would have run through my Dalian Spearmen, maybe even run some of them over, and it would have, of course, opened up my back, the back of that one unit of Dalian Spears, to a charge from the South Rhun Lancers, who have now rounded on my Dalian Spears. They're just going to manage to get into formation in time. Some light casualties there from that charge, a few of my Dalian Spearmen getting skewered, but for the most part, the South Rhun Lancers are running in to a wall of danger here. My Dalian Spearmen are going to be able to repulse them, and now I've secured my flank, pushed back the Haradrim cavalry, and I am now free to do to Harad whatever I please. Now they've opened up a big line here in my center, which is good for Harad. It does allow them to filter some of the troops through here. However, it does open them to a lot of skirmish fires. As you can see, I've reformed all of my bowmen here. I got a couple units of woodsmen and my Elder of Ari archers. Both of them have high enough missile damage to penetrate the flimsy paper armor of the South Rhun warband. So I'm going to be able to concentrate on some of these big blobs here, try and whittle down the Haradrim and free up this line. And then once that's completed, I'll be able to move into the center and help my allies, if indeed they still need it. Now over here we can see that the Serpent Guard have moved in to contest this. I would say that this is the Umbar left flank with the Dwarves. There's a lot of Axemen of Erebor here bearing down this hill on top of these dismounted Serpent Guard. They will be able to hold out for a little while, though. They do have a reasonable amount of melee defense, and I think they've got some decent damage as well, so they'll be able to give as good as they get against the Axemen of Erebor. Down here, though, things looking a little bit more even. The dismounted Serpent Guard holding their ground well enough against the Ironfoot Guard, who are a little bit out of position. But then so are kind of the Serpent Guard. So this is, I think, a lot of their winning in this area has to do with the fact they've managed to surround the Dwarves over here on the Dwarven right. So without any help here, it could very well be the case that the Dwarves begin to crumble, and then Harad will be able to move up here and help cannon fodder. But it looks like it's going to be a little bit too late. Oh, damn, that was a nice catapult shot there, claiming the lives of many of those elite Castamir's chosen. Cannon fodder now retreating his forces back up here on top of this hill to form a final stand against the overwhelming might of Dale and their dwarvish allies. They're just cleaning up all that remains here of a few of the merchant militia who are still fighting to the death, and then Dale's going to be able to advance on this final Umbar position after having defeated the vast majority of their line infantry at this point. And I think they've killed quite a lot of their archers and halberds as well. Yeah, the Castamir's chosen coming down here to form a line, try and delay these Dalish spears for as long as possible. Some of them getting shot down by those elite arrows coming in from the very formidable Dalish skirmish line. I think they've got their Royal Guard over there as well, which is going to be a big problem for the Castamir's chosen. Yeah, a few Dalian spearmen getting stuck in there with the Castamir's chosen. These guys, they are fresh. These guys are just out of a fight. So they're already going to have a significant advantage over them in terms of melee attack and defense, not to mention the fact that Castamir's chosen have 3 HP and a ton of attack. I think they have like 26 attack. Now the Royal Guard have arrived on scene. Maybe things will start to turn around. But there is still that ballista up there to be reckoned with. Cannon fodder firing down into the bunched up troops of Dale, claiming the lives of many of these elite infantry. This is the perfect kind of opportunity for that artillery to really shine. He's got enough really heavy line infantry to hold back the tide for a significant period of time. You can see he's moving in with his J.R.R. Royal Spears, trying to protect that final choke point. He's still got his Harbingers of Castamir and his Corsair Blackguards. Look like they're tossing their javelins at something. I'd be very surprised if they're able to hit anything. Well, this poor Castamir's chosen, just being overwhelmed by the sheer numbers that Dale and the Dwarves can bring to bear. The large mass of this blob surging forward, bullying these guys out of position, and not letting them fight in formation, which is really what they need at this point in order to be able to hold that line. So the Castamir's chosen now completely outflanked and able to be surrounded at any time now. And here are the J.R.R. Royal Spearmen moving in to contest this hilltop here with the Ironfoot Spears. Ironfoot Spears not going to win that fight. J.R.R. Royal Guard are AP, and they've got a significant amount of hit points as well. I see what they're doing. They're just trying to push right through there and prevent these Corsair Blackguards from firing. Let's see if they manage to get a volley off. Oh, they might. Oh, they are. Straight down into what looks like the Royal Guard. Well, this poor Castamir's chosen have just been completely overwhelmed. So Umbar is going to be able to put up a fairly effective final stand here, especially with those Castamirs, the Harbingers of Castamir rather, backing up those J.R.R. Royal Guard in this small choke points. This is the kind of fight that Umbar is going to exact a terrible toll on the attackers in. Yeah, I would imagine that Dale and the Ironfoot Dwarves just coming on a big blob like this they are going to get bottled up by Umbar. Umbar's going to be able to inflict some serious casualties on them. Moving on down here, looks like the Trollmen of Harad have now been committed to the center fight here. The Axemen of Erebor being swiftly overwhelmed. Looks like they're already considering routing Shaken. That's not easy to do to these elite Axemen. So the Dwarves have now had to commit their companies of airborne infantry. That's going to be a nice pairing for the Trollmen of Harad, although I would say that the Trollmen, given how much damage they have and how heavily stacked in terms of melee defense they are, and their AP bonus, are going to do very well against those airborne infantry. Over here, the Serpent Guard, however, getting cleaned up. It looks like no, this is actually Carindal's Dale Charles, both of his units cleaning up these Serpent Guard. Rear charges have really started to take their toll here, and this flank has basically collapsed for Harad. If we move on over this way, it looks like we've cleaned up all the remains of the Southbound Spearmen for the most part. Harad has actually moved in over on this side with a significant amount of his Haradrim Archers, but I think I'm not too sure what he's doing here. He does move back and forth a lot. I can't tell if it's a pathfinding bug or if he's just not sure what he wants to do, but either way, his Haradrim Archers are paying a terrible, terrible price, although they are eating up some of my Elder Avari ammo, so I probably shouldn't be shooting them, but I don't want this large blob of archers to be able to just fire freely on my, especially not onto the exposed rear of my Dalian Spearmen over here, who are still cleaning up, I think, some of the survivors. But that damage over time, it's chip damage. It will really start to hurt. So I just want to keep him back and at bay, if at all possible. Over here, you can see some of the pikemen moving in. These Muhad Beast Tabers, very strong from the front. If they were to advance on my lines, I'm not sure that my very tired Dalian Spearmen and my exhausted troops on that end would be able to hold them back effectively. Even if I outflank them, pikes are very strange at the moment. Even if they're outflanked, they can simply turn their pikes around and basically fight as if they were in formation. So that is a complement of troops that I have very good reason to fear, despite my superior numbers. Moving on over this side, you can see that I've taken up a defensive position here alongside Sin of the Dark Cloud. Our plan is thus. Now you can see that we've really opened up a big gap in our line here. We've only got a little bit of line infantry here. I don't think the Sin of Harad really has... Sin of the Dark Cloud really has a whole lot of line infantry that he can commit to this. He's got a lot of Dalesmen there and things like that. But what we're doing is we're opening up a line here, trying to bait our enemies into coming in, and we've deployed ourselves on the sides of this mountain pass here, because we want to avoid the artillery that Starling and WK can bring to bear. They've got a couple of catapults over here. You can see one of them right there, and I think they've got another one hanging around here as well. So that's something that we need to be aware of. And that would blow holes in our lines very, very quickly and cause a whole lot of problems for us. So in order to avoid that and to catch our enemies at a disadvantage, we have taken up this very strong defensive position here, and again, trying to bait our enemies into making a mistake. And you'll see a little bit more about that later on as the battle progresses. Moving on over to here, you can see that Harad has been pretty well cleaned up. I've actually moved in some of my Elder Avari archers to lend a little bit of aid to the Dwarves over here, who are in the process of cutting down all the remains of the Serpent Guard. You can see a lot of dead Serpent Guard littering the ground here. The Warlords of Umbar have moved in to try and support their ally alongside a unit of what looks like Beligir archers. But unfortunately, the Dale Earls, I think, are going to prove to be too much for them, especially with that large complement of Dwarven infantry. So far, not even close. Not even close. We're like 16% or so ahead. That is a very big lead. We've basically wiped out one of their players already. Yeah, if we move back up here, you can see that Umbar is being overwhelmed. Of course, their Blackguards holding their ground as best they can, but most of their forces have just been pushed here, and they're able to be surrounded on basically three sides once the Dalish and the Dwarven forces are able to have full control of this hill. Now, the Haradrim Ballista has been silenced. That was a really good move on the part of the Dalish and the Dwarven players. That up there, unimpeded, firing downwards, that would have been a nightmare for Dale and the Dwarves. And they might not have even won that fight if this thing was just able to do its bloody, bloody work. So now the Nar Royal Archers fighting amidst the ruins of the Ballista crew, trying to hold back these Ironfoot Spears. And they're going to do a good job of that. The Nar Royal Archers are AP in melee as well, so this is going to be... It's not going to be an easy fight, especially since they are only winded and their opponents are exhausted. And you can see the numbers here from Dale and the Dwarves have really started to dwindle a lot. And I think that's because of the elite units that Cannon Fodder wisely kept in reserve. He tied them up with his expendable front line, made them tire themselves out, basically en masse, because the Dwarves and Dale committed everything against Cannon Fodder right away, and now this is the result of it. Cannon Fodder is starting to pull it back just a little bit. Let's see what we got down here. Some of the Belgier archers have tried to retreat away from the Dalian Earls. Carindol's Earls charging into the Belgier archers. They're actually wavering for some reason. I'm not too sure why that is. It might have been because of the presence of the Trollmen in what is technically their rear. And also I think the Warlords of Umbar might have a fear ability as well. Yeah, they managed to stick around for quite some time so far, but the Warlords of Umbar, against the Dalian Earls, they did not fare very well, did they? Even with the support of those Trollmen of Harad. Now, Harad tried to pull back his elites, get them as far away from the advancing Dwarves and Dalians as possible, but Carindol and Recrius are hot on his heels, and I don't think these Trollmen of Harad are going to be going anywhere. Over here we have a small unit of them charging into the rear of these Earls. We're busy now hacking down the Belgier archers. This has really been an ugly affair for Red Team in this center fight. Let's go ahead. Let's bring it up back to normal speed. And looks like Harad still shifting around in the back here. Not too sure what it is that they want to do. Yeah, it seemed that after he lost so much of his forces, the Haradrim player really went on the defensive. And there goes the Umbar general, Cannon Fodder's general, getting hacked down by what looked like some of the pikemen. But Crimson Behelit was really on the defensive at this point. Cannon Fodder's been knocked out. He's basically surrounded by enemies on many, many sides. Over here he's got some Demons of the Desert. I forgot to mention them. I'm pretty sure I included them in the army photograph, though. And WK has come over to the aid of his ally with a commitment of his 2 units of clan hunters. So he's got a lot of skirmish here. He's got some decent enough units for holding the line. He is still a definite danger, and one that is preventing me from committing the rest of my forces to fights elsewhere. Now, I could potentially shove off and move the rest of my forces over to where Sin of the Dark Cloud and my Barding Herd and such are, but I'm concerned about leaving the back lines open to a force that still has some fairly powerful cavalry and fairly numerous cavalry at their disposal, not to mention a whole ton of archers and a few really strong infantry units. So I have to keep my forces here, and one of the benefits, I suppose, of Crimson Behelit not just charging into battle and throwing away the rest of his forces is that it does force us to deal with him and reckon with him in at least some way. And in this case, it's going to be by not being able to combine our forces against his remaining allies. Oh, a brutal rear charge here going into the Trollmen of Harad by the Dalian Earls. Boom, baby. I'm going to take a picture of that. I like that. That might be our new thumbnail. Yeah, those Trollmen of Harad are just getting savaged right now. Over here, Carindol's Dalian Earls still in a good spot. These are the Earls of Sin of the Dark Cloud. Still a fair amount of Earls left on the field. But Carindol's forces really looking worse for wear at this point. They have managed to wipe out Cannon Fodder. But if we move back up to this fight here, you can see there's still a significant number of Umbar elites here. Still 30 Harbingers of Castamere. A lot of Nar Royal Spearmen. And the Corsair Blackguards still have ammunition firing into the back of those Dalian Swordmasters. Ah, they just did some serious damage. Oh, this poor Nar Royal Archers just being pushed off a cliff here. They actually might rout. That'd be very surprising. That's the kind of unit that almost never routes. Yeah, but Cannon Fodder has exacted a terrible toll on the Dwarves and the Dalians. Despite the fact that he was heavily outnumbered by the Dwarves and Dale, he has still managed to perform fairly well. And he's still holding his own. Look at this, being very aggressive, charging in to the Sons of the Fallen. I think I know exactly what he wants to do here. Oh, I guess maybe the Corsair Blackguards are out of ammunition. A volley into them in the Royal Guard. Oh, that would have been ugly. Now let's see here. Oh, looks like we've got a little bit of action over on this end. Looks like the forces of WK and Starling are coming in like a wrecking ball. Rhun is just absolutely going for it. Seeing the trouble that his allies are in. Yes, this is really important. Now, I moved my woodsman over here because I wanted to try and bait him through this gap so that we could slam it closed. And that is already what's happening. You can see my Barding Herd moving in, trying to close off this gap, keep the cavalry trapped behind our lines. But it is going to turn to be a little bit of a problem for us. Unfortunately, I don't think Sin of the Dark Cloud had his cavalry over here to keep these guys pinned in place. So his Campbell's Dragonites now are going to be free to do as they please. They're going to charge right into my Bardian Marksmen, although luckily a lot of that fire coming in from the rear is actually from my Royal Guard, who are well protected, well hidden over here behind Sin of the Dark Cloud's and my Sin of the Dark Cloud's Dalesmen and my Woodsmen. and they're going to have free reign to deal with these Camel's Dragon Knights as they see fit. And you can see them already beginning to drop. We got a unit of Dalian marksmen here, pursuing those guys across the plane, getting a nice rear charge, dealing with those runic cavalry as best as they can. That does still leave this unit of bodyguard here. Unfortunately, WK lost a little bit of his micro. He's going to get it back right now. He's going to try and bring it, I think, either into the back of my Dalian marksman or straight on into my Bardian marksman rather. Wanting to avoid that, I'm going to countercharge him with my Dalian marksman, and at the same time I'm going to focus my Royal Guard's fire on the bodyguard. You can see them really start to drop. So our plan here has worked pretty well perfectly. We managed to isolate their cavalry behind our lines where we were free to deal with them as we see fit. Meanwhile, on the main line, oh man, look at this. This is ugly. This is real ugly. Looks like Sin's Ravanian Hunters probably getting a little bit too close to the front lines. They definitely don't need to be here. But all along the line, you can see reinforcements being poured in the form of like Dalian Swordmasters, Dalian Paladins, who are now backing up my Barding Herd. Sin and I working quite well together to deal with the runic forces. And now all of our skirmish power has been turned on the Balcom tribesmen, who are really the big ace in the hole for Rhun in this kind of situation. If they're able to get that unit in there and toss it, say, onto the flank here, getting some nice enfilading fire all along the line where the Barding Herd and the Paladins are, that would collapse this line right here really, really quickly. Over here, though, we're not having nearly as much luck. You can see a lot of the Swift Blades and the Gamp Rim getting stuck in with my Barding Herd, who are just slowly being overwhelmed due to the sheer numbers. And I don't have enough of them to keep this entire line contiguous, so some of the clansmen here under WK are going to be able to scoot through the lines. You can see this is actually where WK's general is going to be hanging out. So his general now on the front lines, lending a little bit of morale support to the rest of his army. Over here you can see the Loknar Rim have been isolated behind our lines, and my Dalian marksmen are picking them to pieces. Over here the Lokgamp Rim have formed a spear wall, or at least trying to form one, to keep Sin of the Dark Cloud's cavalry out. He doesn't want that cavalry coming in and running down those archers, getting into the back, dealing with some of the skirmishers, or launching hammer and anvil attacks into the rear of WK's lines. And you can see a lot of dead runic dragon skin units here. That's because we've been focusing a lot. We've actually been shifting our skirmish power. Now that we've dealt with the Balcot tribesmen for the most part, we've been focusing our fire on either the archers or these large blobs of infantry, and we're slowly starting to drive them back. Although Rhun has got some really nice positioning here, managing to overlap that unit of Barding Herd. That's going to precipitate a collapse of this line, which will just allow the floodgates to pour forth. And this has only been Rhun so far. This isn't even the entirety of the enemy force. There's still Umbar's elites yet to come, and our lines are already struggling to deal with this large force of Men of the East. Yeah, we've still got a lot of archers. We've still got like javelins and things like that. Sin of the Dark Cloud's actually brought in his Ravanian Hunters, now getting them moving against, I think, the Corsair Savages is probably the best target. These guys have pretty low javelin damage, and I don't believe that they have AP either, so they are great for dealing with lightly armored units like those Savages, for example. But yeah, so far we're kind of struggling. Over here, the Dalesmen who were committed to support my Barding Herd, who are now in danger of routing, being overwhelmed by this unit of runic Swiftblades. Over here you can see more of their, I think this is another unit of Loknar Rim, has managed to pierce behind our lines, and we're running out of answers here. My Dalian Marksman now pinned between a unit of Clansmen and these Loknar Rim. And all the while this is going on, we've been trying to focus a little bit on the Lokgamp Rim. WK keeps moving them forward, though, and getting them out of range. We really want to side these guys down as quickly as possible to allow Sin of the Dark Cloud to move in with his remaining Earl units. Moving on back over to the other side, my Bardian Marksmen looking like they're taking some pot shots, I think, at the Catapult. Yes, indeed. Catapult here from Rhun. Now in a great position. Look at this. Look at the damage they could do, especially on the flanks here. We have really pushed far forward here, and we are now very much in the line of sight of that Catapult. So things are looking pretty tough for us at the moment. Still, though, that relentless archer fire pouring in. Oh, here we go. Boom! All along the line, taking a lot of Dalian Paladins with them. I think yet more Paladins over here. Yeah, that runic catapult I think is already paid for itself. Now we've beaten back most of Rhun's forces. Ooh, it's just getting worse for us here. The longer we stay here, the longer it takes us to mop up all the remains of Rhun's forces, the more kills that catapult is gonna get. But yeah, we managed to deal with most of Rhun's forces, but we have lost quite a lot ourselves. I have none of my regular line infantry left. Most of my barding herd has fallen in combat. Meanwhile, Sin of the Dark Cloud's elites have really suffered quite badly at the hands of some of these missile units, for example, and at that catapult. So I wouldn't say that we're in a huge amount of trouble, but once Umbar gets stuck in there with all those multiple HP high damage units, we're going to really, I think, struggle to hold them back in the long term. So let's move away from here. Let's see what is going on the rest of the battlefield. So far, not a whole lot has changed. The Dwarves have mopped up all that remains of Harad's and Cannon Fodder's forces. I think have been utterly defeated up here and down here as well. I think most of his forces now have been mopped up. So the Dwarves and I think the Dalish forces under Carindel are going to be able to round on the forces of Starling. So we are going to get the support that we need, although a lot of them, I think, at this point are quite exhausted, and yeah, because many of them have been fighting for quite a while, and they're all very tired. And actually, they are Dwarves, so they are quite slow. So it's going to take them a while to get over here and be able to be of any use to us. Let's pop back on over to this side, see what's happening here. It looks like Harad has moved forward with a few companies of his archers, managing to sort out whatever pathfinding problems he seemed to be having earlier, and he's now opened fire on my poor Elder Avari archers. And this is really not a good thing for my archers. My archers don't have a lot of armor, as you would expect from elven units. So units like the Herantrum, for example, they can be quite the problem. So what I've done here is I've brought out a unit of woodsmen, and they're an expendable unit. They're out of ammunition. They're pretty throwaway, but they have a decent enough attack value that they can deal with these lightly armored archers. So I'm going to put a few strategic volleys into them, try and do a little bit of damage to these guys. I'm going to move forward with my woodsmen to tie up that skirmish line and at least prevent them from firing for the time being. It's just a delaying tactic at this point until I can think of some kind of strategy that's going to help me deal a decisive defeat to the remaining forces of Harad and the limited number of runic auxiliaries that have been sent to aid them. Let's pop on back over to this side. I can see Sin of the Dark Cloud still has managed to conserve a lot of his elites. I think there's a unit back here of Castamir's Chosen who I think they might be getting targeted by the Dalian Dragon Slayers, who appear to be now out of ammunition. So they've done a reasonable amount of damage to the Castamir's Chosen. But I think that the Castamir's Chosen advancing on their own like this, especially with Dalian Paladins in the mix and Royal Guard and things like that, it's just not worth it. Yeah, speaking of Royal Guard, there's quite a sizable contingent still left, so we are going to have at least some hard units to fall back on when it comes time to dealing with Starling's forces. I think that Starling has actually moved up now. Oh yeah, some crossbow Corsairs. I think I forgot to mention these guys. But they are quite lightly armored and they have lower range, so this is really not a good place for them to be in. I would have brought these guys in much later, after most of our archer forces had run out of ammunition, because we've been firing for quite some time and used a lot of our ammunition up on WK for the most part. So yeah, it's really not worth it to bring in crossbows like the Corsair crossbows, who are very lightly armored, while the enemy still has longer range missile forces, because you were going to lose them like crazy. And they're pretty expensive too. Over here we see some Castamir's Rangers on their Starling. I think I'm going to miss the Castamir's Rangers. But yeah, Starling definitely has some decent enough skirmish units here, and a lot of them are fresh, whereas, as I mentioned earlier, ours have been firing for quite some time. Over here, the Athala Rangers locked in combat with the Loknar Rim. That's, I think, is going to be a pretty easy win for the Athala Rangers. They've got decent enough melee stats. I think there's also some Sword Masters, about 20 of them mixed in there with them, alongside a few Rovanian Hunters. Most of them, I think, have been cut down. But yeah, for the most part, WK's forces are in tatters. I don't think he really has anything left. This is pretty well the wreckage of his army. So 2 red team armies have been knocked out of commission at this point, although the respective blue team armies have taken heavy casualties in the process as well. Now, if you look at the percentages, not really all that even, although do keep in mind that a lot of their lower tier units have been killed, whereas everything that remains is going to be their high tier heavy hitting stuff, like these Harbingers of Castamir and these Abrazanian Narduzagar, for example. Yeah, we don't really have too much of an answer to these guys. Sin still has some Dalian Paladins, but they are very tired. I've got some Bardian Marksmen who are also tired, and my unit of Royal Guard that I'm going to commit alongside of them to anchor that line in the struggle against the Umbar elites. But ultimately, this is going to be a pretty tough fight. I'm actually going to start to pull back here, and I think that's because of that catapult shot that came in. We don't want to bunch up too much right now, because if we do that, then I think they've got at least 2 catapults still online. Now, WK has lost his, but Starling still has pretty well a full health catapult. Oh no, WK still has a single catapult remaining. So yeah, there's a lot of artillery there. We don't want to bunch up too much. If we did that, well, we would lose. We would lose really, really quickly. Let's pop over to this end. Let's see exactly what's going on here. And it looks like some of the Serpent bodyguards here getting a big charge from about 52 Daily Spearmen. Harad has actually moved farther forward, I think, than most people would have expected. I don't really know what these bodyguard are doing here. They're just kind of out in the open like this, getting attacked by spearmen well behind enemy lines. Carindel has the option here to box these guys in, sandwich them before the Serpent Guard are able to escape, but unfortunately, he's not going to jump on it. And the Serpent bodyguards are going to have the opportunity to retreat through this little gap here, which they are currently in the process of doing. Harad's now brought up some of his spearmen, his Muhad beast tamers, demons of the desert, and all kinds of scary things. Looks like Carindel's Lake Town pikes. Yeah, I think there's an issue with some of the pathfinding in this map at the moment, so routing units will just kind of stay in place in certain areas instead of running away. But yeah, a lot of Carindel's forces have now been switched. Not Carindel. Crimson Beheli's forces have now been switched over to this end. Over here, I noticed that the skirmish forces of the Haradrim and Rhun were just kind of sitting out there, so I actually brought in all my forces in a general charge to deal with these guys. So we're just slowly trying to like pick our way through them, but unfortunately due to the pathfinding issues, it's going to take a little bit longer, I think, than I would like. But popping on back over to the struggle between Dale and Rhun and Umbar. Rhun has been swept from the field. Meanwhile, Umbar, it says defeat is certain. I'm not entirely sure I believe that, although it may be because of the Daily Marksman. That AP damage that they bring to the table is really significant. Although, yeah, look at this. The Harbingers of Casimir are shredding the Dalian Paladins, who are now down to 23. These guys are only warmed up. They've only just begun to spill blood. And I think that the remaining Dalian forces here are really going to struggle to hold back this huge tide of elites. Over here, I'm going to bring in my Bardian Marksman, my exhausted Bardian Marksman, into the Abrazani Nardi Zagar. And I think part of this is to keep these Abrazanim pinned in place for at least a little while. I've got my woodsman over here, and you can see that I'm actually beginning to move forward with them. I'm trying to reposition these guys, put them on the flank here so I can fire into the unprotected rear and sides of the Harbingers of Castamere. And indeed, there they go. Yeah, getting themselves into position so they can put some withering fire into those Harbingers. Now, they're not going to do too much. The Woodsmen are fairly low-tier archers. I think they only cost about 200, so they're about the lowest tier that Dale can have. But the chip damage, it helps. Anything helps at this point. We are desperately in need of it, so anything that we can do to try and get the advantage over to Umbar is going to be definitely needed. Over here, the Dalian Earls charging hard into the Blackguard. The Blackguard from Starling, though, going to get their volley off before those Earls manage to run into them. And they're going to lose, I think, like 10 horses or something. Yeah, that was devastating. And this Blackguard, with their multiple HP and high attack values, ultimately, they are going to have the victory here. Over on this end, you can see that Sin of the Darkcloud has sent in his Athala Rangers and everything into this area to try and shut down those catapults. We really don't want these things firing, so this is just a stalling tactic. Just so we can delay these guys for long enough that we can maybe try and win this infantry fight, which we have a good chance of doing if Sin of the Darkcloud keeps hammer and anviling these Umbar elites with his Earls. Though his Earls are suffering quite heavily in the attempt. Now my Bardian Marksman here, I've just been completely obliterated by the Abrazani Nardi Zagar, which is going to leave that portion of the line very open and very exposed. And we're just running out of things to throw at the men of the East at this point. Although meanwhile, my woodsmen over here were firing into the flank of those Harbingers of Casimir. It doesn't seem like they really managed to do a whole lot. Now they're out of ammunition. So I'm just going to commit them to the fight, just trying to throw as many bodies in there as possible. Speaking of, I've got my Bardian Marksman over here trying to move in, reinforce the center here where the Abrazani Nardi Zagar and the Harbingers of Casimir have managed to break through our lines. Big countercharge here from the Bardian Marksman. They're decent enough in melee. They won't get completely swept away in moments by these heavy-hitting Umbar elite swordsmen. But ultimately, this is not a fight that they're going to win. So I'm going to bring in my Royal Guard as well, try and stiffen the line and wear down these Umbar forces for as long as possible. And over here you see that help is on the horizon. The Dwarves have arrived, and they're already coming under heavy, heavy fire from that Umbar catapult that is now back online. It looks like Sin's forces were repulsed, not able to tie up this catapult, and so Starling is going to be able to train its sights on the Dwarves. It's very slow, very exhausted Dwarves as they advance, which makes really, really easy targets for them. Of course, their Blackguards from Starling looking like they moved a little bit too far forward. Some more Dalian marksmen from Sin of the Dark Cloud, some more archers, I should say, being thrown into the fray here to try and tie up that catapult and melee. And they are going to be able to connect here. Starling now committing his fencers, looking like he's getting a little bit serious. He wants to break this assault on his forces quickly here and get his catapult back online. So the Dalian marksmen, at the same time as they're being pushed against by the Corsair fencers, he's got some Corsair Blackguards in the back as well. So Sin of the Dark Cloud is going to pull these guys out, and that's going to put the Umbar catapult back online and able to do its thing. It's just an absolute mess here. If we take a little bird's eye view, you can see that the death toll has been catastrophic. Rhun's army is basically gone. My forces are basically gone. Sin of the Dark Cloud's army is on its last legs, and now I've been forced to bring in some of my Elder Avari archers to try and give us a little bit of an edge. So I brought in my Elder Avari archers, both of them actually, all the way from across the field, though it looks like I think they got charged by Serpent Guard over here, or something like that. Yes, indeed, getting harassed by those Serpent Guard on the way in. I just wasn't able to do the damage I wanted to the Serpent Guard. I think they're actually still around somewhere. Yeah, now that this area has been completely freed up, Dale has actually taken this is Carindol's Dalish forces, taking up a defensive position up there on the in the position formerly occupied by cannon fodder. And they're just going to let Harad go right by. I'm not sure I would have done this. I would have at least tried to rush down and grab Harad and try and inflict some light casualties, although it looks like maybe Harad's going to bring the fight to them. A unit or two of the Beastmasters here getting themselves ready to start poking holes in those Dalian spearmen. And now that these guys are fresh, I think that's going to be a pretty easy fight for them, even with the hill advantage for the Dalian spears. Looks like Harad getting themselves nice and set up here. I think that they're going to focus with those arrows, probably on the Royal Guard and on the Paladins, try and chip off some of that AFP if at all possible. But there's still a reasonable amount of Dalian forces up here. I don't know if Harad will be able to break through with just the few forces that he has available to him. Moving back over onto this, and the Airborne Infantry under Recrius have moved in against the Catapult and the elites that still remain for Starling. Of course, our fencers are going to do a number on the Airborne Infantry. They do not have sufficient attack values to get through the formidable Corsair defense. Or on this end, you can see the remaining units of Starling's not cannon fodder crossbows, crossbow Corsairs moving in to be a real big pain. Ooh, that was devastating. That catapult is just doing so much work for Umbar right now. The Dwarven force is very blobbed up, trying to deal with the Abrazani Nardu Zagar. Just a small number of them holding these dwarves back long enough for that catapult to just continuously fire into that Dwarven blob. Oh, this has been real bad so far. Looks like Starling has now trained his sights on the Ironfoot crossbows. He actually hit my Elder Avari archers, I think, just by accident. And my archers now almost completely out of ammunition. My Elder Avari archers here, my lower number unit, almost out of ammunition. My other one is definitely out. I think the 69 unit of Elder archers I have there is my last unit of missiles that can still fire. Well, let's see what we got here. Crossbow Corsairs firing into what looks like the Royal Guard under Sin of the Dark Cloud, claiming the lives of a couple of those Royal Guards. You can just see how much damage those crossbows do. I think they've got like 17 damage or something insane like that. Yeah, so if there was more of them, this would be a really big problem. But unfortunately, Starling brought them in, I think, a little bit too early, and now they're getting shut down by missiles. Actually, I think I got my remaining unit of Rivermen. I do indeed. The few Rivermen that I still have remaining, tossing their javelin payloads into those crossbow Corsairs, wiping out all of the units and that bear bows, and now that unit is completely useless. If he had more of them, I think there would have been a greater impact. He might have been able to keep them maybe a little bit farther back here and fire into the rear and flank of these Royal Guard, and that would have been devastating. That might have actually turned around this fight, because you can see most of the Dalish forces over here have been beaten. It's really the flanking units that are causing the problems for these Umbar elites. So if those crossbow Corsairs were still active and still at more or less full strength at this point, I think that this particular part of the battle would be going a different way. Now the Dwarves have managed to sweep through, wiping out most of the Umbar elites. I've actually brought in my my Rivermen, all the remains of them, to toss some javelins at the Corsair Blackguards as they were moving in to try and drive them back, try and prevent them from supporting the rest of the Umbar army and bottling up the Erebor infantry, who are now just completely exhausted. Yeah, soon, of course, our Blackguards now going to fall back in the face of my javelin volleys and the constant arrow fire still coming in from the few units that still have ammunition. But as you can see, the percentages have really evened out. We're now within 9% of each other instead of like 16 or something. So the Umbar forces have really started to pull things back, and I think a lot of the killing that took place was mostly over here and mostly due to Starling and WK. Starling had some really big heavy hitters, and bringing them in at a late point in the battle when all of our forces were engaged and tired and quite heavily depleted was the best thing that he could have done. And these Corsair Blackguards, I think they might be out of ammo. Nope, they still have ammunition, firing into the Axemen of Erebor, killing quite a few of them. Corsair Fencers here, look at the damage that they're doing to the Dwarves. Yeah, the Javelins and the Corsair Fencers working in tandem, that is a nightmare for armored units like the Dwarves. Yeah, look at that. Those Dwarves are falling left and right. Starling slowly but surely bringing things back. Let's see how things are going for Dale and Harad. Over here you can see the Muhad Beast Tamers. I think there's 2 units of them right here. Maybe it's just 1. Fighting hard against the Dalian Spearmen and the Royal Guard. It says the victory is certain, but honestly, I wouldn't believe it. I think that the Beast Tamers can do a serious amount of damage to those Dalian units, and because of their long pikes trait, they aren't really too able to be hit very easily. Now, as you can see, I've trying to keep the Haradrim forces divided. Again, we don't want our enemies presenting that united front. So I've actually moved in with all that remains of my forces on this side. Most of my army on the other end has been wiped out, but I still have a fair amount of troops remaining to me. And I've got my my Dalian marksmen up here on the hill, trying to skirmish down some of those Muhad Beast Tamers. Not very many of them, but over time, these 20 or 21 or so Dalian marksmen are going to be able to reap a terrible toll amongst the ranks of these Beast Tamers. And once that happens, I'll be able to move in with my Spearmen and try and outflank these guys, if at all possible. Yeah, a good strategy in this particular instance would be to see if your opponent has put their pikes on defensive formation. If not, the pikes will constantly move forward and try and wrap around anything that gets into them. So what I could do is send out a little probing assault here with my unit of 75 Dalian Spearmen, try and get the pikes and such to wrap around my spears and blob off so that they can easily be surrounded. But I'm actually going to take the initiative here, surprisingly enough, because I saw the Muhad Beast Tamers were falling back, and they're not currently in formation. So I decided I was going to surge forward with my Dalian Spearmen, try and catch them before they could get themselves back into Spear Wall, but unfortunately, I was not fast enough. Many of my troops are exhausted, so they're just not able to cover ground as quickly as I would like. And the Muhad Beast Tamers are going to have the opportunity that they need to reform their Spear Wall. So my Dalian Spear is going to charge in there against Muhad Beast Tamers. The charge is vicious, and it's going to claim the lives of many of those lightly armored pikemen, but due to their pike trait, they are going to have an advantage in close quarters. You can already see it beginning to balance out, and now it is in favor of those Beast Tamers. And Harad has brought in a couple of his archers here. This is a great move by Crimson Behalid. I think he's got like 1 or so units of his Haradrim archers and his South Run archers as well. Yeah, they're going to be able to fire at my troops all day. And these pikes are going to keep my my forces at bay and prevent them from really striking back at them with that long pike trait and with their pike animations. It's hard, as you can really see it here. It's hard for my troops to get in there and attack, even with their longer spears. So these Beast Tamers are pretty well able to do unlimited damage to my woodsmen and to my Dalian Spearmen with very little fear of retaliation. Moving back over to this end. Witness the final stand here by Starling's forces. Most of them have been wiped out. I think Umbar has been beaten at this point, but damn the damage that WK and Starling did. Really put the hurt on 2 Dalish armies. There goes Starling's general getting hacked down by the airborne infantry and my Elder Avari archers. But yeah, Starling and WK taking down 2 Dalish armies and dealing a significant amount of damage to the Dwarves as well. You can see that there's much less Dwarves than there were previous in the battle. So a fair amount of my Elder Avari archers here managed to help my Royal Guard in pushing back the remaining forces of Umbar. But though there is still this Javelin unit here, of Corsair Blackguard, 68 of them, that need to be dealt with before victory can be claimed on this battlefield. So the Dwarves are going to start to shift backwards. Sin of the Darklight is going to leave as well. I'm going to keep my forces here to mop up all that remains of the Umbar elites, and then we're going to turn our attention onto those Blackguard in the back. But we'll come back to that in a few minutes. Yeah, let's get back over onto this end. See the Harad doing very, very well. Especially now that he's brought in the Demons of the Desert. They're pushing back the Royal Guard. Carindel is going to be forced to bring in his exhausted unit of Dalian marksmen. They're going to be charging downhill into those Demons of the Desert. Demons of the Desert, though, very potent in melee. Lots of HP and really high attack values. They're going to give it to these Dalian marksmen. And even that influx of troops there, the Dalian Paladins and the Swordmasters, is just not enough. These pikes backed up with those Demons of the Desert, that is just, it's not something that that these particular Dalian forces have the opportunity to push back, given the formation that they're kind of stuck with, being in this narrow pass on the hill. So it's going to be up to Recrius and his Dwarves again to save the day. It's like the third time that Recrius has had to march across the field to the aid of his allies who were losing without him. And the Dwarves really starting to get quite heavily depleted, and they're certainly very tired from all of this marching. Although, to his credit, he still has 2 units of crossbows, very healthy crossbows, almost full strength, with ammunition left from the looks of things. But yeah, the percentages much, much closer now, only within about 6% of each other. So, despite the fact that the red team had some significant losses early on, they are managing to pull this back. Now over here, my Elder of Vari archers charging into battle against the Corsair Blackguards. That's going to be a pretty... The Elder of Vari archers are not bad in melee at all, but the Corsair Blackguards are much, much better. And you can see them just hacking down my poor Elder of Vari archers. Despite their hundreds of years of training and skill, they're just not able to stand up to these savage, savage Corsair warriors. So I'm actually going to begin to move in with everything that remains of my forces. This is basically all that I got left. My 25 Royal Guard, my Rivermen, and my 2 units of Elder of Vari archers who are really struggling against those Corsairs. They're just getting massacred here. Yeah, look at that. That's particularly brutal. Only a few Corsairs have fallen in return, about 3 of them. I'm bringing in my Rivermen, who still have a little bit of ammunition, I believe. Yes, indeed, they do. I'm going to try and position them on the flank so that they are able to toss their javelins accurately into the Corsair Blackguards and not hit any of my own Elder of Vari archers. That would be bad. They're already having a hard enough time. Don't want to get no friendly fire in the mix as well. Oh, I hope we don't throw it from there. That would be real bad. No, I think they're just sitting there. They're probably not going to toss it in like that. In the meantime, my Elder of Vari archer line beginning to flag. My Royal Guard are going to arrive just in time. Charge in there against the Corsair Blackguards, get some decent kills. And now that the Corsair Blackguards have wrapped around on this end and exposed their flank, I'm going to start tossing my javelins into them. This combined arms approach here is the best chance I have for dealing with this remaining Umbar powerhouse unit. I'm taking a fair amount of damage as a result of that, though it looks like my Rivermen are now out of ammunition, so I'm going to have no choice but to commit them to the fray as well. All my Elder of Vari archers now have been hacked down. My Royal Guard, the only thing that stands between these Corsair Blackguards and the complete obliteration of my Dalish army. I'm going to charge in there with my Rivermen, try and support them. I probably should have brought them around the flank, but at this point I think I had consigned myself to defeat. Managed to kill about half of those Blackguards though, so that's going to be not bad for our army in the meantime. Although this is ugly, look at this. Didn't even see this until like the last minute. Crimson Bailey coming in with his Rodram Serpent Guard. I was very unimpressed that these guys were still around. I did my best to kill them. And they're going to ultimately get their revenge on the Rivermen for the javelin volleys that those guys were tossing earlier that completely devastated that regiment of Serpent Bodyguard. Alright, let's see here. Looks like the Dalish catapult is still around. I wonder what they're shooting at. I have no idea. But it looks like I've managed to break through the remaining Haradrim forces. There's still a little bit of my Dalian Spearmen left here, cleaning up a few of their Muhad Beast Tamers. But the toll, look at the cost I had to pay. Dead Woodmen, dead Dalian Spears. There was like hundreds of Dalian Spears here, almost like 300 or so. And unfortunately, they were pretty well all killed by a single unit of Beast Tamers. Pikes very strong from the front. Well, I think that I don't think they'll be quite so strong in the future. I think they're going to be losing a lot of melee defense and things like that to allow other melee units to at least deal with them without having to get wiped out in return. So comes Behalit moving over now with his self-around archers. Not too sure why. Yeah, there's a few Dalian marksmen still left here. I think it's mostly my my exhausted units, but my army are pretty well gone at this point. Yeah, that tiny unit of Dalian marksmen. I think they've targeted these stealth-around archers. They're going to go and try and put some fire into them. Over here, it looks like the Muhad Beast Tamers ended up being... No, they ended up being completely victorious. Look at that. They have wiped out all that remained of Carindol's forces over here, and they have reclaimed this hill for the red team. This hill that has been lost pretty well since the beginning of this game. Now occupied again by red team forces, their banners flying high over what is now a graveyard. Looks like that's my general being hacked down by the Corsair Blackguard alongside the Serpent Guard. Let's see. What does Starling have left? Some Dalian Dragon Slayers here, some Airborne Infantry, not a whole lot. I think maybe Sin of the Dark Clouds General might be in here. No, I don't know if he still has his General. So the Corsair Blackguard's victorious, lost about half their unit. That band of Serpent Guards still roving around, being a pain. Looks like Starling has an artillery crew as well, so he may be able to move forward and reclaim one of these catapults, which could be pretty bad. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fast forward through a little bit of this because it's going to be quite some time before the action picks up again. So I'll see you guys in just a few moments. So now that the Haradrim forces are on top of that hill, they're gonna have to be dealt with. But Umbar and the Haradrim bodyguard are trying to bring a little bit of reinforcements to their aid. You can see that the Erebor infantry over here, along with Sin of the Dark Cloud's Dragon Slayers, doing their best to try and deal with this Corsair Blackguard unit that's just killed so many things. The Corsair Blackguards have tossed a lot of their javelins into our elites and things like that. And they cut down at least 200 or so of my Elder Avari archers alongside my general's bodyguards. This unit has seen some stuff, and they have inflicted some serious casualties on our forces, so we want to deal with them. We have a grudge here. We got a serious bone to pick with those Corsair Blackguards. Meanwhile, those Serpent Bodyguards running hammer and anvil attacks into the rear of the Dalish Dragon Slayers, who are now down to a meager 4, I think down from 11, and the Erebor Infantry, who are down, I think, from down to 8 from 9 or so. Let's go ahead and put it on normal speed. Like Sin of the Dark Cloud's Dragon Slayers not fleeing. I thought they were routing, but no, they're just going to go right for those Serpent Bodyguard. Try and deal with them if at all possible. The Serpent Bodyguard are going to scoot away. The Elder Dragon Slayer is going to be forced to turn around and charge back in to the Corsair Blackguard. Let's see if they actually manage to get anything done. Come on, boys, don't let me down. Ooh, nice. Claiming the lives of a couple of those Dragon Slayers, of the Blackguard right there. Where are those Haradrim bodyguard? I don't see them anymore. Might be that they've bugged out a little bit. Now, because we really want to kill those Serpent Guard as well, because they've been a complete pain in our butt the entire battle, I've actually moved forward with a couple units of my remaining Dalian marksmen, all 20 of them here, and yeah, we're going to try and put a little bit of fire into the Serpent Bodyguard. Speaking of, you can see them wheeling back around, charging into all the remains of the Airborne Infantry and the Dalian Dragon Slayers, who are ultimately going to be overwhelmed by that very small but nonetheless deadly unit of Corsair Blackguard. Another big charge into the Dragon Slayer is going to see off most of our forces there. So let's go ahead. Let's see what's going on over here. Yeah, it looks like, I think it's Sin of the Dark Cloud's forces and Carindol's remaining units alongside the forces of Wreck Race are going to be charging right up that hill towards the Haradrim position. They've still got some nasty stuff up here. I think they've got their Demons of the Desert. Indeed they do. Some archers, and that unit of Muhad Beast Tamers are going to be able to hold the line. Now in a nice defensive position. Look at that. Amidst the ruins of at least 2 or 3 different armies, they are forming their spear wall and holding their ground against this final charge here from the blue team. That's going to be beautiful. Let's see if... let's pop back over here for a moment because those troops are quite slow moving. Let's see. Yeah, the Corsair Blackguards now down to, I think, about a third of their original strength. Hacking out all the remains of the airborne infantry. So now the final battle is going to be going down right over here. And the Dwarves have managed to make it to the line, colliding with the Muhad Beast Tamers. Their high mass is going to be of great use against these pike units. At the same time, the vengeful Dalish warriors charging in alongside their Dwarven allies, looking to deal with this menace from the east once and for all. There we go. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward that just a little bit. The Haradrim opening fire with all the ammunition that remains to them. Some of the Haradrim archers, I think, about to flee in the face of this overwhelming Dalish force. There's some crossbows back there firing straight on into them. That's going to be really, really painful for those units. And that's going to be enough, I think, to make them rout. Let's wait for it. Oh, wow. Strangely enough, they're gonna hold their ground. Although some of the Southwind archers breaking. Oh, now there is some routing here. Where are the Demons of the Desert? What are they up to? Oh, I see. They're right down here in the thick of things. Look at this. This chaotic mess of a battle. There's no lines anymore. It's just bands of men butchering each other. Men and half-trolls, of course. Demons of the Desert being swiftly overwhelmed. Look at this. This Paladin and this Royal Guard teaming up against that Demon of the Desert. Oh, unfortunately, that Royal Guard's going to lose his head. And most of the Haradrim line has been swept away. Now we look at those percentages. They have really brought it back. They're within about 6% of each other, 93 to 99%. Yeah, the Haradrim marches up here have been caught. Really nowhere else for them to go. And that just leaves that one unit of Serpent Guard, which is around here somewhere. Ah, here they are. Getting attacked, I believe, by some Idalian spearmen, which they swiftly managed to rout. Up here, a big charge into the Ironfoot crossbows by 4 remaining Serpent Guard. They're going to hightail it out of there, try and get some cycle charges off before they are inevitably scythed down. What do we got over here? I'm not sure what these guys are going for. Maybe an honorable death. Maybe they're going to like impale themselves on their own stakes. Bam, charge into the rear here, going to claim the lives of a few of those Ironfoot crossbows. Ironfoot Guard up here, all the remains of them are going to countercharge. There's about 40 of them there. And the Serpent Guard are just relentless. Look at this. They still think that they can win this battle. There's a nice charge there. I think some of the Serpent Guard are going to get themselves isolated. One of them is going to get shot down. Look at this. These final 3 units. I love these. I love when it comes down to like a few units that are just going on this suicidal mission to try and do as much as they can. Unfortunately, they end up getting shot down, I think, by those very same Ironfoot crossbows. And their heroic saga comes to an end. Very sad. Very sad indeed. Now, we've still got about 4,000 or so frames left, but I really think a lot of that is just troops moving over here to deal with the Corsair Blackguard who still remain, and this tiny unit of catapults. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fast forward to that final confrontation, and I'll see you guys in just a few moments. Alright, now here we go. Some of the Dalish forces here, I think this is mostly Carindol's forces, and I have like maybe a tiny, tiny amount of spearmen remaining. I'm going to send them forward. They look kind of like routing troops. This is a sneaky thing that you can do. With small units of troops, sometimes you can actually target artillery crews and things like that, and it's very easy to miss a single unit on a massive battlefield like this. So that was kind of my plan in setting in the last 3 spearmen. Also that, and because why not? Most of those catapults now out of ammunition, not able to do the damage I think they wanted to. Gonna bravely charge in here against the Dalian marksmen and the catapult crew from Carindal. Charge on the flank by the Blackguard. Ooh, that's gonna be nasty for the Dalian marksmen. They're gonna lose quite a lot in that. Well, now it's just gonna be a matter of overwhelming this small pocket of Umbar elites. Yeah, let's go ahead and let's fast forward through that. Yeah, this Corsair Blackguard slowly being cut down. The Dalian marksmen here, just through sheer numbers, managing to get the best of these Blackguards. Finally, something has managed to stop them. And I'm pretty sure they got a few hundred kills in this, which is pretty impressive. I have to say, the red team really used their elites extremely effectively in this particular battle. Cannon Fodder made a great last stand there on top of the hill, and now Starling managed to put up a serious fight over here at the pass, which destroyed both Sin's army and my army for the most part. And now he's here making this final last stand against the Dalian marksmen, taking down at least, I would say, 15 or so of them so far. And there you have it. That is going to be all she wrote. Now, look at the kills there. I managed to get quite a lot of kills, and I think a lot of that was mostly due to some of the lower tier Harad units. So that score's a little bit inflated. Carindal got quite a lot of elite kills, a lot of very powerful Umbar units they had to take up in the center line there on top of that hill. Sin of the Dark Cloud was he was all over the battlefield. He was fighting against Rhun, and Rhun had a lot of numbers, and he also had his cavalry out there supporting his allies over in the center. Recrius just ping-ponging back and forth, saving the day multiple times. Crimson Behelit really kept us on our toes. Those, even after he lost his army, the Servant Bodyguard were just a real pain in the ass, and they managed to kill at least half of one of my full-strength archer units pretty well on their own, with like maybe 6 or 7 units still remaining. So very impressive. Cannon Fodder put a great last stand up there on top of the hill. He just was not able to get the support that he needed. His allies were basically cut off from him, but nonetheless, he still, I think, did quite well for himself. WK and Starling, though, damn, they came in like a wrecking ball and completely obliterated Sin's army and my army. They took horrendous casualties in the process and ended up losing a significant portion of their army. WK definitely was the first one to go down of the two, but Starling managed to persist into the late game and caused us a lot of problems, especially with that catapult. That just did so much damage, not just to Sin's elites, but also to the relief force sent from Recrius. So that is it for the first half of my 2K subscriber special. I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. I have another part coming up, and that's going to be a Warhammer 2 2v2, and they're both going to be coming out at the same time. So once this is done, you can go over and you can check that out. And yeah, I hope you guys have been enjoying it so far. I want to say a quick word at the end. I would like to thank, of course, everybody in the community who supported me, but also especially the Age Reforged team, Sabons McTavish, Fluffy Duck Vislak, Blood Magpie. I think I mentioned him in the second video, but I would like to say a word about it here as well. Man of Wanway and people like that who have all supported me and all just been you know, they've been around for battles. They've been around to help me do scenarios and like event battles and things like that, which inevitably end up going up on my channel. So big thank you to all of them. If I missed your name here, it is not because you're not important. It's just because there's a lot of names, and you know I can't always get to all of them. So I hope you're not too offended. But these 2 videos are definitely a celebration of not just my channel, but everybody who has supported them so far, or supported my videos so far. In any case, hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.